right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening for anyone who's watching us. This is our final episode of the College Admissions Tips to Success podcast. And today, really, we're going to be sort of wrapping up the series and then also talking a little bit about what to expect after you've really submitted your college application and sort of the process as to how that works and what elements are to be expected. For introductions, really briefly, Bree, I'll let you go first, and then I'll briefly
Yeah,
myself again.
awesome. My name is Brianna Dolly. I am one of the virtual outreach tutors for college admissions. I am also a GSE board ambassador. I'm originally from a small town in Minnesota, but now I attend Vanderbilt University. And at Vanderbilt, I am a theater major on the pre-medical track with minors in chemistry and anthropology.
And as for myself, my name is Ishaan Chabi. I'm the founder of GSE and its three subsidiaries, VOT, IDA, and GSE Health. And I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and a former alumni of Vanderbilt, graduated in fall of 2024. I double majored in molecular and cellular biology and medicine, health, and society. And I am now I'm headed to medical school, the Quillen College of Medicine, as an MD and PH candidate, as well as a Dean's Scholar. And again, I guess the agenda of this episode, really quickly, like again, I think I sort of covered it really in the beginning, but like what to expect after submitting your application, and some details we'll go over the college specific portals that you get after submitting your Common App, Coalition App, or QuestBridge app, as well as like interviews and interview tips. We're going to cover that as well. Decisions, like there's so many categories of decisions. We'll talk about that as well. And then once you do get admitted, there's a few events that colleges can host so that you can make the right choice as to what college is best for you and commit to it. So we're going to cover all of that and some final tips and insight as well as to this whole process and some final advice, I guess, before we formally wrap up the series. And I do want to also highlight that we do offer college admissions consulting sessions. So for anything that we've touched on in this series that you want to go deeper into, or if you just need help with your own application, we are here to support you. And that is why we have this whole process. And we have a video at the end in each of these episodes that details how to sign up for one of those college consulting sessions. So Bree, I'll let you go and take a dive into the first topic that we have today.
Awesome. So I will get started with college specific portals. So as we've talked about in previous episodes, your application starts in something called like just your common application. That is your common app, QuestBridge, or coalition application. And so essentially that's where your like main essay is, that's where your rec letters go, that's where your awards and extracurricular sections are. That's everything we've talked about in the past three episodes. So essentially, after that's submitted, you will receive a link either through your email or through the portal. Usually both will come through. That will give you access to a portal specific to each college. And so this link comes through. Really important to save this link because sometimes it only comes through email and it can be really easy to lose. So you can always sign in again through the web, but just in case, it makes it much easier if you just have a spot where you save all the links to these college specific portals because you might be applying to multiple universities, in which case you might have a lot of links to keep track of. So once you get this link, you can open it up. It's a section where colleges might have additional supplemental essays, as discussed in episode 2. These are essays specific to the college that you only submit to that college through their portal. This may contain an invitation to interview if it's applicable to that school. We'll get on to interviews in a few minutes. This may contain also additional merit scholarship applications, although it should be noted that not all merit scholarship applications are listed explicitly within your college application portal. They may have separate applications that are only advertised on the school specific website. So make sure when you're applying to school, you're also looking for if they have any additional merit scholarships because they might not show up in this portal. On top of that, those merit scholarships might have different deadlines. So also, like we spoke about in episode 1, make sure you keep track of your deadlines through a spreadsheet or your own system to make sure you know when does the college need your application and when do these merit scholarships need your application. Also in this college portal, college specific portal, this will be the location where your decisions will be posted. So your decisions will either come just straight through your portal or you'll get a link again in your email saying an update has been made to your applicant portal or a decision has been released. And then with that link, it'll take you back to this applicant portal, which will now be updated with your decision letter.
And typically in these application portals, just it's also a great place to see like what requirements you fulfilled and what requirements are pending. They have a really nice checklist. And I will say almost every college in the US, I'll be honest, their college specific application portals are very identical, very
Mhm.
similar. So like they're always present with a checklist of like the items you've sent to them and what's pending with like a red X. So you'll see it's very well organized. And many of these schools, they also have contact information. So if you want to email the admissions office, call the admissions office for that specific school, like those details are also in this portal as well. So it's a really great place to keep track of your status in terms of your chances of admission for that specific college.
Mhm.
And yeah, and as Bree mentioned, like this is the place to be after you've submitted your application, your common application. And so you definitely want to be checking these college-specific portals on a very regular basis. I think it's always good to see that, like, yes, they do notify you via email and also through the application, like Common App sometimes does it. But I do think that it's best to always keep a look as to see like if there's any updates because sometimes you don't want to be the victim of like an email went to spam, right? Like you always want to make sure that you're up to date with all the information that the college needs from you or essays and whatnot. I guess that transitions us a little bit into the next part, which is really interviews. So as Bree mentioned, you'll get an invitation to interview. Likely, you're going to get an email notification as well as a notification in the college specific portal. And some schools have interviews as part of their supplemental process. So, anytime we're saying supplemental, remember that this is like, of course, school specific and also it is after you've submitted the primary college application. So, schools may like sometimes it's required, sometimes it's optional to interview. Either way, you have to, or sometimes it's by invite only as well. So like sometimes they invite specific people to interview, and so not all schools have interviews. And I would also say when you are looking at these interviews for each school, it's sometimes good to also go onto the school website and see what policies are present for like for specific schools. If the interviews are declared as optional, then interviews it's sort of a coin toss in a way. Like if you feel comfortable in interviewing with the one of the admissions officers or even one of the alumni or someone affiliated with the school, then definitely this is your chance to shine, show your personality. Bree, I know we will definitely talk about and Bree here, I know like we both have talked extensively about interviews, and I will say like Bree has her own anecdotes about interviews for sure. But I will say that like interviewing definitely gives a very holistic vision about you as a person, and it really puts a character or a person to the application. So it really adds that element, which I know you've already tried to demonstrate through your essays, through your letter recs, that other people are talking about you through your letter recs. But definitely a one-on-one interaction via an interview is very meaningful to admissions committees. So it's definitely a great place. It can be a huge asset for admission. At the same time, if you're not feeling as comfortable, if you don't, maybe I mean, some people are not very sociable at that time or in this age. So it's very much, you don't have to do the interview if it's declared optional. So there's always that choice. And yeah, and like of course, with these interviews, you also want to like I've already added this. Like it definitely gives a very humane element to your application, but it also gives you a chance to ask questions if you have any about the university, and especially it's helpful if you're not able to tour the university. And I know with touring, we can maybe cover that a little bit at the end if we have time, but there's like different versions of tours that a lot of colleges offer too. But if you don't get a chance to tour, interviews are a great place to ask questions since it's demonstrated interest about the school. Right. Anything you want to add, Bree, to this?
No,
Or
I think you covered it very well. Essentially, interviews are just like an expansion of your essay, but verbally. So you're just talking more about who you are, beyond just your statistics on the page and beyond your extracurriculars.
And I guess for how interviews work, if you want to go a little bit deeper into this, perhaps.
For sure, yeah. So, I'm actually the DECA state champion for interviewing for the state of Minnesota. So this is probably my favorite part of the college admissions process. And if you do want more info on interviewing or want to do even a practice session, that's something you can totally sign up for a tutoring session with me. Be very happy to give you feedback on it. But until then, how interviewing works is interviews are about 30 minutes long. Sometimes, especially for some of the Ivy Leagues, they might do a 45-minute interview. I know my Yale interview was like a solid 45 minutes. So make sure you block out enough time when you're scheduling that you're not going to have to run off and leave early because they are kind of lengthy. So the interviewer themselves is often an alumni or a current student. It's rarely someone who's directly working in admissions. And usually how that works, it'll be this person will be instructed to give admissions kind of a summary of who you are, what you talked about, and kind of what their overall like interaction, how they'd rate their interaction with you. Um, so they're usually interviews are usually structured with brief introductions at the beginning, where you're kind of just talking about like who you are, where you're from, what's your name, essentially like the basic. If you were elevator pitching yourself to another person, essentially, and the interviewer will usually do the same, just saying like I'm either an alumni, I'm a current student, who am I, essentially. After that, there will be a series of questions prompted by the interviewer. A lot of these will be very similar to essay questions. Like, for example, some might be kind of just usually you'll get a tell me about yourself question. That's kind of more elaborate on like, what are you involved in school? What are your interests? What are you looking at majoring? Where are you from? Kind of expanding on who you are as a person, expanding on that initial introduction. After that, you might be asked specific questions about extracurriculars that particularly impacted you. You might be asked about why is this school important to you? So a lot of the similar questions you're getting for your essays are questions you'll get during your interview. And these are usually not questions you'll have beforehand. These are questions that like universities don't advertise what they're going to ask you. So make sure you kind of have a general preparedness of like knowing what you wrote about in your essays and knowing what extracurriculars are important to you because you never know what you're going to get asked. And then at the end, you'll actually have a chance to ask the interviewer questions of your own. These are questions you can absolutely prepare in advance. And I prepared it in advance for all of my interviews. The biggest thing is you want to make sure you have questions to ask. Interviewers really like being asked follow-up questions because it shows that you're truly interested in the school and that you want to be a part of this school. So even if you just have maybe a random question about what campus environment is like, that's okay to ask, especially if they're an alumni or current student. This is a time for you to get more information about the school, especially if you aren't able to tour. This is your chance to talk to someone from the school and learn about them while also demonstrating that you are truly interested in the programs and opportunities at the school. And then just as another note, usually, especially since COVID, most interviews are done over Zoom, but some schools do offer in-person opportunities. These can be directly on campus if you happen to live within the state or nearby. But some schools also have like satellite alumni that can interview you from your state. But this isn't always offered. So if you're not able to do an in-person interview, it won't hurt you. But if you are close enough to do one and it's pretty convenient, it is typically recommended.
And I will just as a brief thing to add on here, I also will say that with interviews, occasionally some schools might give you the interviewer information in advance. Like in my
Mhm.
case, when I was being interviewed with Harvard, they actually sent, I think it was the night before, but they sent me information about who I was going to be like talking with, talking to, my bad, who I was going to be talking to for my interview, and sort of gave a brief bio as well. And I will say, like in my own experiences, when it comes to like asking interviewers like questions, sometimes like of course it can be about the school for sure, but I also like I had a really great conversation with my interviewer about our shared love for Star Wars. So like it was like these interviews can be very like, and again, that like you wouldn't expect it per se, but it's something you have to also be, I'm not going to say you have to be willing to think on the spot a little bit. So like
For
when it
sure.
comes to preparation as well, I think it's like definitely you want to prepare yourself by looking over your application and all your essays, but also be able to have that slight element of free thinking so that you can sort of be
Mhm.
able to adapt on the spot. Because as Bree mentioned, not every, like colleges do not advertise what interview questions they're going to share. So sometimes the questions that you might be prepared for might be twisted in a way that is not necessarily something you might have thought about before. So like there's a lot of adaptation that comes with this as well, but of course you want to be able to be very well prepared and well versed in your own application as well so that you can do well. And so now we come to the day of the interview, I guess. We can sort of think of it like that. Now, for on that day, definitely you want to be early. Even on Zoom, it's good to be, I would say, like, my general statement is be at least 15 minutes early. I think that's always a great thing. Attire-wise, you want to always dress in business casual or professional attire, including Zoom. Like, that still applies to Zoom. You want to still be very well dressed. And definitely, like, wearing a nice top, wearing a nice suit, like that's definitely something, it looks really well in the sense of you're really serious about getting
Mhm.
into the school. Like that's sort of the image that it conveys. If it's over Zoom, then you definitely want to find an environment that's a bit quiet with limited distractions. Even in the because like in the background of the video, sometimes there's a lot that can be going on and that can distract interviewers and take away from what you're saying. So you want to avoid that situation. Of course, when the interviewer joins on, you want to greet yourself, be able to properly introduce yourself, even if there's no introduction prompt per se. And at the end of the interview, you also want to thank them for taking the time to speak with you at the beginning and at the end. I don't know, but this might be something, but sometimes if you can send a thank you letter, that's always a great thing as well because you're able to sort of really showcase your appreciation for having the opportunity to be interviewed by the school. And of course, with all the interview questions, you want to be able to think very thoughtfully, thoroughly. It's never a bad thing to take a brief pause to think about the interview question because it shows that you're like genuinely processing it before you just give an answer. And you want to try to prevent, I know public speaking can be a bit of a, can be scary for some people. So you definitely want, it's okay to take some time to think about what you're going to say and then respond appropriately. For like a lot of the recommendations that we do have for the interviews are very similar to what we said in the essay writing episode. I think that was episode 2, where we basically, this is again, as Bree mentioned before, it's really a chance for you to expand upon all the activities that you've done, take the time to really showcase the work you've done, explain it, and really show your passion and how it changed you as a person and, if possible, the world as well, right? Like there's so much variety here because every person is so different when it comes to their interviews. So definitely you want to showcase yourself well. At the same time, if you can connect your answers to the college you're applying to, like for example, if let's say you did a research project in high school, I remember I mean, then again, that was a different time. I was in pandemic era, COVID-19, but I did a research project on like COVID among pregnant women. So then I talked about, if possible, I'd really love to work with this professor who was part of this division in this part of the college. Like I sort of gave some specifications as to how I'd like to continue that sort of work, if possible, if admitted into the college. So like connecting your answers to the college is obviously a huge asset because it really shows you've done your research for the college and it shows your very fervent passion towards attending if given the chance. And a few things not to do for sure. Don't want to give one sentence answers. Definitely, as I said before, it's good. It's fine to slow down a little bit, take some time to think, and then definitely answer as appropriately. And obviously, and definitely the goal as well, I would say is, I mean, it's very easy to ramble when you're nervous. So the biggest thing
Mhm.
to that would be, again, just take some time to slow down a little bit and then share your answer. And always try to maintain, I know it can be tricky, but try to maintain a sense of confidence in front of your interviewers because in that way you're showing that you're really like enjoying the interview. Like that's actually a term a lot of schools say, like when like we hope you enjoy the interview and stuff. So it's definitely you want to highlight like having a little bit of confidence even though you're internally nervous is a huge asset, especially when you're engaging with the interviewer. And then, like, I think the last thing, which I think is also arguably really important, which is just be yourself. Sometimes we
Mhm.
feel a compulsion to project an image that we want people to perceive of ourselves, especially in these interviews. But you sometimes just want to sort of, you definitely don't want to project. I think that the best thing is if you're focused on yourself, focused on your preparation, your answers, and then, of course, taking the time to think thoughtfully. You definitely convey a sense of confidence, and you also convey a sense of like you're not trying to like because anytime you're projecting, you're more likely to mess up. I'll be honest. That's in my fervent experience. That's what's happened. So at least
Mhm.
when you're being very much yourself, you're definitely conveying that sense conveying all the right check boxes, I guess. That's the best way to summarize. And then, Bree, I know if you want to talk a little bit about follow-up questions, I know we kind of covered this, but if you want to
Mhm.
really touch up on that.
Yeah, I'd love to. I can kind of just give like, I feel like each part of the interview has some key points that I just want to highlight, especially with follow up questions. But, like, first of all, with the introduction, even if they don't prompt it, make sure you introduce yourself. That's something we talk about a lot in DECA. If you just blow past that introduction, that already kind of sets off a bad taste. Um, Also with the when you were talking about like kind of connecting with your interviewer over like your love of Star Wars, I was gonna also mention like something that we talked a lot about also in DECA is like, and also if you don't know what that is, it's just like a business club. And I did interviewing through that essentially. So I competed in interviewing, but basically how something we talked about was also like tuning yourself to your interviewer. I had some interviewers that were so formal, it was almost scary. So in that case, you want to respond very formally as well. I also had an interviewer who like fully stopped me in the middle of one of my questions and goes, "You know who you remind me of? Elwoods." And then just like kept going. And I was like, you know what? Maybe my answers can be a little less formal now because we're having a good time. So also kind of tuning yourself to your interviewer is really important, especially if you know like your interviewer has a shared interest. Sometimes they'll try to pair you with alumni who are trying to go further, who went to the same major that you did. That way they can properly answer your questions at the end. So also when you're responding or asking those follow-up questions, try to tune your questions into something that they might have an answer for or might have maybe special information about, like if they were a biology major and you want to know more about that biology major, ask about it. That's something that they went through college for, and I'm sure would love to talk about. But especially with those follow up questions, I highly recommend asking about three. That's kind of the golden number. If you start asking too many, you're kind of running over their time. If you ask just one, that might, or 1 to 0, that might show that you're not as interested. But again, prep those ahead of time. If you have one that comes to you on the spot that you like better, go for it. It's your time to ask questions at the end and get to know more about the campus, get to show that you are really interested in this college, especially about like specific things. If you have a really like specific question that you still think the interviewer might be able to answer. You don't want to ask anything too specific that they just won't have an answer for. But if you really want to know like about a specific area of the campus environment, like that's a question you could definitely ask. And essentially admissions just really want to see that you're interested in the college, especially if you're speaking to an alumni or current student who does know a lot about what it's like to be on campus and move through this university as a student.
And I will say that one more thing when it comes to follow-up questions is if you can find a question that's necessarily not something that's like Googleable, I don't know if that's a
Hmm.
word, definitely it helps because it shows that you've taken that extra leap of really digging into that college
Hmm.
without like, I mean, if it's something like I mean, what's the average? I don't even know what a good Googleable question would be, but
Even like, what's the average like ACT score? Like, that's
for
something you can
admission. Like
Google.
definitely like that's something you don't want to ask, right? But when you
Mhm.
have something that like I mean, I know one question I used quite a bit, which was like, what's one piece of advice you would give your freshman college self when you first entered, the college? So
Mhm.
like I mean, there's a lot of good variety out there as to what you can ask. I definitely think that you want to try to really, I mean, as Bree mentioned, I think you covered all the main points for follow-up questions. So yeah, that is that. And then I think we can transition into the big part, which is decisions. I'll let you cover some of this a little bit here as well.
Yeah. So I'll start with kind of just like, when do decisions come out? Because there's multiple, as we talked about in our previous episode, I believe it was
It's the first one, I
episode
think. It's
first
not
one.
the first
Yes, you're
one.
right. So in episode one, we covered like all the different types of decisions that are like types of applications. That's like early decision, regular decision, all of that's covered in episode one. And they all have different application deadlines, but they also have decisions that all come out at different times and mean different things. So I'll kind of start by going over like, when would these come out, first of all. So some colleges do something called rolling decisions. This means decisions can come out at any time. And often, the earlier you submit your application, the earlier your response will be. And the faster you'll know, am I accepted to this college? Um, Early decision slash early action, which are different things, but usually come out around the same time, always come out before regular decision. So these are decisions that you will get very early. You might even get them before you're done applying to colleges as well. They usually come out kind of fall to December range, sometimes very early January. It really depends on the school and also depends on what type of early decision it is, because you have early decision one, which is will come out the earliest. You have early decision two, which comes out a bit later in the spring, kind of close or even at the same time that regular decision comes out. And then you also have early action, which depending on the school, I've noticed comes out either with early decision one or with early decision two.
Mhm.
And then oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was
If you
gonna
had
say
something to say.
early action can also be split into EA1 and EA2, and like that's what I
Correct.
was gonna say. So like there is EA1 typically fall, EA2 can be in the spring. So it's sim but again, for the different like meanings behind early action, early decision, I would say go see episode one because we really
Hmm.
dug really deep into that. But it's the biggest thing here is just everything depends on the college.
For sure.
So you just go to the college website, see their breakdown of dates, and then of course if you can organize it into your spreadsheet or system or however you're
Hmm.
organizing it, that's the best way to keep track of it in terms of when to expect decisions. But and
Definitely.
then I think the last thing, which was like there are some schools, especially the Ivy Leagues, that will give all the decisions on the same day. So they have a day called Ivy Day. And that's pretty much the day. I don't know. I think it's in March or April. I always forget. I
I
don't know.
believe
Or is it in
it's
May?
like the very end of March, I think.
March, right?
Or like early April. It changes every year, so sometimes it
Again,
varies.
we always say is check the college. That's
Yes.
gonna be our
For
advice.
decision dates, check the college. They don't always adhere to it though, is the other thing. Sometimes you might get a surprise decision a little early.
That's true. That is also very possible. But I mean, then again, I mean, then also like as an example for rolling decisions. So rolling decisions, I know like for a fact, I always remembered this. Penn State is one of the schools that does rolling decisions. And it like I will say with this, like that's a bit of a unique thing where the earlier you sit, like there is an advantage. The earlier you submit, the
Mhm.
earlier you have a possible chance of getting admission. So the rolling, that's its own category, but most colleges will follow the early decision, early action, or the regular decision plans. And certainly, if you want, like I would say, keep track of like deadline, or not deadlines, but keep track of decision days. Like
Mhm.
obviously, the college posts it, but then sometimes that changes. They do sometimes send emails, if I'm not, I think they do send emails,
Yeah.
to, like when to expect a decision, and then
Hmm.
yeah, but either way, like all of these decisions will come out in your senior year. That is a guarantee. So like
For
it'll
sure.
be from the fall of your senior year through the spring, perhaps. but no more, no latest than I think, I don't know, May perhaps? May, I don't know. I think May
I
is
think
like,
usually May is when you have to commit, which we'll go over in a little
which
bit.
will
So
go.
usually they're out by mid-April, I would say was the latest I received any decisions.
Right. So that's pretty much sort of what to expect. Where will you see your decisions? So all of the decisions are posted at in your college specific portal. And you will also get an email that says there has been an update to your application portal. Like that's quite literally the verbiage that you'll see in the email. Like, and then there's a link that redirects you to the college specific portal with your decision. Now, there are some schools that also mail out acceptance letters as well as the online portal. Perhaps that's a tradition. There's a lot of reasons for that. But I will say that those acceptance letters will also sometimes contain swag material. So it's very much a very significant moment, especially like they really build up that moment for sure. And then very rarely do some schools send a decision with no digital notification. So the big thing, again, I think I covered this in the last episode, so definitely look at that. But like keep checking these college specific portals because, or maybe it was this episode, but like keep checking these college specific portals for updates because even if there's no email, like sometimes these emails can go to spam. So because you're getting so much of that in that period of time. So
Mhm.
checking these college specific portals for decisions. Of course, keeping in mind that there's a specific period in which decisions may come out. So don't overlook it. Don't over I can't think of the right word, but don't be that person who just keeps checking every hour every day. That's probably not going to be as advantageous.
Definitely.
Then I guess now we can move a little bit into decision terms, and I think we'll cover this in halves since it's a lot, frankly.
For sure.
So I'll just start us off and then we can move in here. So early decision, right? This is the binding decision, frankly.
Mhm.
So when you are accepted as an early decision candidate, regardless if it's ED1 or ED2, you are required to commit to that school and withdraw all other applications to other universities. The big thing here is when you are submitting an early decision application, in the beginning, I believe it's in the Common App or Coalition app or any of those apps, there is an agreement that you get when you are selecting the early decision option for that. And that agreement, like it's quite literally just said, it just says early decision agreement. And you have to list like all the protocols that are listed in that agreement. You need to complete all of them in order to fully gain admission as an ED candidate. Even if like one or two is missed, that's not like you have to make sure everything is fulfilled. Otherwise, that creates problems. And typically, this early decision agreement that you get in the very beginning, when you have to sign off on it as well as a parent, as well as a counselor. So three people are involved in this process to keep you accountable that you're fulfilling all the requirements if accepted into an early decision school. Now, it is important to also note that early action non-binding, which is another category, which we're going to get into that in a minute too. Early action is a non-binding category. So you're not required to commit to that school and withdraw applications. And it's pretty similar to regular decision. The only difference is you're getting a more quicker decision, I would say, relatively early action, right? Now, if you were deferred as an early decision candidate, that means that your application is now in the regular decision pool. So you are no longer in that binding set of, you're not in that binding commitment anymore. You are now following the regular decision pathway. And we're going to get into that. Bree's going to talk about all of that. But the regular decision pathway, you're just shifted from the committed binding early decision pathway to the non-committing regular decision pathway. And just a deferral means you're not denied per se, but you're just moved into this new pathway. And you can be accepted in this new pathway, you can be denied, or you can even be waitlisted as well for a later date. And you can continue to apply to other schools as normal. So a deferral ED sort of takes you out of the binding agreement and you're just put in a regular decision pathway, and everything else still applies. And then an early decision denial signals that basically you've been rejected, unfortunately. So you're not going to be like you cannot you're not put into any other pathway. Like that the road is over basically for that school. But of course, I mean, with that, there's obviously like that's obviously not the most that's the option that no one wants to get, but that does happen. So that's the only caveat to the ED denial. Now, I'll let Bree go into regular decisions since the bulk of schools covers like most of y'all will probably go through the regular decision pathway for school.
Yeah. So, like Ishan said, like essentially most of your applications will be through regular decision, especially because with early decision, you can only apply to one school that way. And also, if you get deferred, that ends up being in the regular decision pool anyway. So, essentially, how regular decision works is if you get an acceptance, you are officially given a spot at that school if you choose to take it. Once again, this is not like early decision. You're not bound to this. Even if you were deferred and now you're going through the regular decision, you are not bound to this. You just have a spot at that school, and that spot will wait there until you decide if you want to attend that school or if you want to attend elsewhere. So essentially, you have until usually May 1st, but again, double check with that school to make sure they don't need you to commit earlier. Um, it's pretty standard for May 1st for this, but some schools are different. So just make sure you're double checking the deadlines for committal for each school. So you get your all your acceptances essentially. Once you have all your acceptances, you can choose then where you want to go. And we'll get into how you choose what school you're going to and what that looks like. But essentially, any acceptances you get, you have a spot at that school. Whether or not you choose to take it is up to you, but you will have that spot until May 1st and it is open for you. If you are waitlisted, that essentially means that if another student declines their acceptance, there's a chance that your application will be reconsidered. The problem is a lot of schools over accept for the year because they expect students to not want to go there. So waitlist spots are not a guarantee at all. And I actually found that when I applied, literally all of my waitlists said they had no spots available at any point. They weren't even reconsidering applications. So if you get a waitlist, the likelihood is that you might not get in, but there's still a chance that that school will accept you. The problem is they are not bound to accept you until the school year starts. So you can get an acceptance off the waitlist as late as August. Meaning, with that, because you have that May 1st deadline and because the waitlist is not guaranteed, you want to commit somewhere. So even if you're waitlisted at one of your top schools, you can still have your spot on the waitlist and commit to a different school. If later you are accepted off the waitlist over the summer and you decide that your waitlist school is the one you want to go to, you can rescind your commitment and attend your waitlist school. But typically, most commitments are final unless you are accepted off a waitlist. So if you're committing to a school, make sure it is a school that you actually genuinely would like to attend, because chances are you probably will be attending that school. Um, and then on top of that, you also have denials, which means you will not have a spot at the school. You are not being considered for waitlist spots. That school is just not an option, unfortunately.
And the one final thing I'll just briefly add here is that I think the only time when it's sort of like okay, I guess. I wouldn't even call it okay, but the only time when it's okay to rescind a commitment would be if you are being waitlisted. I don't, if you're
Mhm.
waitlisted somewhere else, it's probably like when the commitment, as the word implies, it's pretty final. Like you want to go to this school, this is the school you want to go to. But I guess the only
Mhm.
situation where it's okay to maybe rescind is if you are waitlisted into the school that you genuinely like want to go to, but you still have this other school that you are truly committed to. So like that's sort of
Mhm.
my point is like you don't want to just it should not be a case where like you've committed to a school and then you rescind that commitment because you changed your mind and you want to go somewhere else. Like that's not something you
Definitely.
want to do because that's not what that option is specifically designed for. A commitment is pretty
Mhm.
strong. It means that you are attending that school. The only exception for when that can change is if there's a waitlist school that you have been accepted to and you want to transfer your commitment to that school. So that's the only
For
case
sure.
that's acceptable.
And
And
on
then, go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead.
just gonna say on that point also, if you have some schools that send out their acceptances a little earlier than others, you're probably going to want to wait to hear back from those other schools before you commit. So, like, say I commit to a school in this first batch of schools that came out, but then later a school I like more came out, but it's still before that May 1st deadline. You don't want to commit yet. You want to wait for all your acceptances to come back before you decide. Because the only, like Ishaan said, the only time you want to take yourself out of a commitment is if you're accepted to a waitlist school, like over the summer down the line.
Exactly. And of course, and then of course, we already kind of covered this in the beginning, but like obviously the one curveball or oddball, and this is the ED thing. So like if you're accepted to an ED1 school in the fall, that's a situation where you have to cut off all applications that are
Mhm.
pending. So and rescind any. That's the only time where that changes. But yeah, we have covered this in good detail. So if you want to rewatch this segment of the video, feel free to do so as many times as you like, because it is a lot to process. So we know like this is definitely something that's it's an important part because it helps you understand where you are in the application process,
Mhm.
and it's important to really understand that component, especially in the later phase. Now, of course, once you're accepted, hooray, this is amazing. Like, it's the best thing in the world, frankly, to feel that acceptance. And generally speaking, most schools, once they have given you an acceptance, will have a day for all their admitted students to sort of tour the school, see the programs they have. And this is the admitted student days are often before, like they're before the May 1st commitment deadline. So there
Mhm.
are no schools that are gonna, I don't think there's any schools, I think, in the country that have any of these days after May 1st. It's all before May 1st. So,
Mhm.
and the purpose of these admitted student days is for you to really get to know that school so then you can make the right choice for commitment, which we are going to cover like in a minute in our next section here. And of course, while you're in these admitted student days, they'll do tours. They'll even maybe sometimes like they may allow you to get insight, like I think like a day in the student's life. I don't know. There's a lot of
Yeah.
different things like that they do. And it's not a required thing that you have to attend, but it's definitely something that can be very useful when you're making your decision.
Mhm.
And you can also maybe meet some of your other fellow admitted students. And if you all maybe you can start developing your college friendships at that time, for all we know. But definitely it helps you get a very good insight into the school itself these days. So we highly encourage, like, if you're given that chance to visit the school or on admitted students day, like this is the best chance to really acclimate yourself so that you can make the best decision for commitment. And when that's such a good transition talking about the process of committing to a school. So Bree, I'll let you take it here.
For sure. I was also going to briefly mention for usually for touring, they don't offer this, but for admitted students day, sometimes some schools will offer financial aid to help cover travel expenses. It's not a guarantee. It's not super common, but some schools do. So if that is a concern for you, please reach out to someone at the school or research if that's an option. But now that you have been accepted to some schools, and you're looking at committing. So, up until May 1st, between when you receive your acceptances and that May 1st deadline, this is a time for you to continue considering your schools, going to those admitted students days. If you're able to tour, it's a great time to tour either in person or there's also online tours, like digital kind of walkthrough tours. I also found it really helpful to like a lot of students will have like day in my life videos that I think were really fun. Um, or even just doing continued research, looking at what students have posted about their experience. Some schools will also in your acceptance connect you with a current student or an alumni as someone you can talk to and talk more about the school. So if you aren't able to make it out for a tour, that might be something you can do where you can speak to a student about like what was it like living on campus? What were the programs like? Um, how supportive of this, like how supportive of you was this school? Was it kind of a place where you struggled or was it a place where you had all these resources that were supporting you through college? So this is a great time to kind of close the chapter on touring and pick through what your top schools are. And this is also something we can help with as well. If you want to meet with one of us, chances are we might have toured the school you're looking at. There's a small chance of that. Um, there's also a chance that we just can, I mean, there is a guarantee we can just talk to you about your options. If you're sitting there and you're like, I don't really know what this means, or I don't know what I should be looking for in a school, that's something we can talk through. Or if you just want to verbalize your thoughts about your top two schools or top three schools, verbalize them to us. We'll give you feedback on our thoughts,
We're here
and
for
we'll give
y'all.
you someone to talk to.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we're here for y'all for whatever support you need. That's the best way to say it, essentially. So
Definitely. And if you're
um,
looking at Vanderbilt specifically, both of us went there. So
yeah. I
we love to
mean,
talk about it.
we could both do like a PhD on how much we know about Vanderbilt at this point. Like, there's so
Absolutely.
much, yeah, like at this point, because I mean, it does, you do get so much research in this, you do so much research in this process. So it definitely, and it's a really good thing that you are doing that much research because it really makes you feel very confident in what you can
Mhm.
achieve at the school. And yeah, transitioning us back to the committing process, frankly, it's not super complicated. Typically, like in I think it's in the comment. I think it's in the comment app, right? If I'm not wrong, I think it's a comment. I can't talk. I'm rambling now. See. Anyways, um, either way, when you are committing to a school, you are going to have the option like a button or form or something. It's pretty clear they have a whole process that's outlined in the college specific portal. But basically, you have to, I believe, you notify on you, of course, the college that you're committing to. You follow through the process for committing that the college has outlined in their portal. And as we've said before, you can only commit to one school, with there being some exceptions, like the waitlist exception to another school. Uh, you can also, now the thing is with committing is once you have committed to a school, that's when you'd start the process of withdrawing your acceptance slots to, yeah, withdrawing your admission profile from all the schools you were accepted into. And that is all done through the college specific portals. So like there's again, it's very well organized. So you guys, hopefully, if y'all run into any challenges, we are here to support y'all. But typically, it's very clear. Like if you want to withdraw your application, it's outlined right there on the front page as to how to do that.
Mhm.
Um, and sort of like again, I think we've kind of covered this as well, just like in our conversation just now. But like, how do you know which school is best for you, right? Um, you obviously have a lot of research that you need to do. Take the time to think it over, talk it over, picture yourself, envision yourself there. Preferences, like there's 100 reasons. Like I know I have friends who wanted to attend an in-state school because tuition is cheaper, right? Or they're getting in-state scholarships. So there's a lot of reasons. Everybody has different reasons as to why one school is the best for them. And then of course we're here. We're here to talk, like we're here to give advice, insight, anything you need, really. We're here since we've both been through this process. And I guess we've both been very well versed in it, even in the process of creating the series. I think we've both we've really gotten our PhD here, but I think I just joke, but it's definitely something where we can help you for sure. And then
Most
Bree, do you
definitely.
want to give some final insights and tips?
Yeah, absolutely. So just overall, kind of, I think the through line with everything is really be authentically yourself. That's in your essays, that's in what extracurriculars you choose to participate in and also include. That's in your decision process as well. Make sure you're making this decision for you because ultimately you are the one attending this university. So make sure you're just being yourself through your application and through your committal process. Plan out your application timeline early. This can start even before the applications have opened. Really, really keep track of deadlines. Really, that is like just my biggest thing. It's really easy to miss deadlines, especially when you're also going through your senior year of high school, too. Like you're busy, you're looking at graduating, you're finishing up classes. It gets very busy very quick. So it's really nice just to have an easily outlined deadline spreadsheet.
Mhm.
um, really take the time to work on those essays. I'd say that's like the biggest time commitment is writing those out and reviewing them. Also, if you are watching this and you have not started the application process, start keeping track of your activities and awards. Like soon because compiling those can be very overwhelming and sometimes you forget about ones that maybe took place a while ago. Or I know there was times where I would be writing out kind of like all my activities and then I'd realize like after I submitted something I was like, oh, I did do that. Like,
Right.
whoops.
And I was gonna say also, like, I know we just covered this in the last episode, but character limits are sometimes like
Yes.
so concise. Like, trust me, 50 and 150 characters roughly are very limited space. Like, because this
Hmm.
includes spaces as well, by the way. Characters include
Hmm.
spaces as well. So it's like you don't have as much space at all, really, to talk about everything you want to highlight. So it takes some time to even condense it. Like in my case, I can tell you, like, I, of course, built my list of activities and whatnot, but then it was like the time it took to condense it all into something that's comprehensible and understandable, but also something that really is highlighting the impact and everything that I want to highlight. It takes time for that. So it's always good to be proactive and keep track of everything early. And also, I would say, like, maybe, again, doing your research early always helps into this process. So yeah, this is something you can do as soon as now, I would say, like especially your activities, so you can keep track of that. I'll let you continue. Sorry, I know I just interjected there.
Oh yeah, no, that was wonderful. On top of keeping track of those deadlines, like Ishan was saying, you also want to check for additional scholarships and their associated deadlines. I know for Vanderbilt, when I was applying, their merit scholarships were not explicitly listed. These are things that you have to Google Vanderbilt merit scholarships. Otherwise, you will not be able to find them. Um, Especially because even if schools advertise meeting 100% of demonstrated financial need, the way financial need is calculated isn't usually the actual amount that you really need. Especially if you're in a situation where your family might make enough money to not qualify for financial aid, but they're not directly funding you, so you aren't actually receiving the funding that you're like on paper looks like you're receiving. So make sure, even if you do think you might be eligible for financial aid, really try to look at those merit scholarships. College is expensive. And if you can get a little bit of extra funding, it's always really helpful. So check each school for merit scholarships, even if they're not officially listed.
And sorry,
Oh,
one
go
more
ahead.
thing I want
Sorry.
to briefly add. No, I just wanted to briefly add in here. When it comes to merit scholarships, as you mentioned, definitely like you have to. I think in my own case, like I applied to Vanderbilt a little bit later in the cycle, so
Hmm.
I didn't even notice that they had scholarships, but the deadlines were all in the fall, and I applied in January.
Hmm.
So it was like my point is like you don't it's good if you're doing your research, you definitely want to keep like like this is another deadline, I would say, like merit scholarship.
Hmm.
Like definitely whatever system you're using to organize and keep track of deadlines, add that in there as well, like merit scholarship deadlines or for consideration and stuff. I also
For
wanted to
sure.
briefly add because I don't think we've really talked about it as much in any of our episodes, but for financial aid, typically you do have something called the FAFSA, which is I don't yeah, I cannot I think it's Federal Aid Financial Service Assistance.
Something
Probably
like that.
butchered
Yeah.
that, but something close to that at least. And with many schools, they do. I think I remember that I had to like complete the FAFSA, even though I hadn't been formally admitted to the schools. But sometimes schools will require you to complete the FAFSA and also complete, I think there's like a college board one as well that you have to
Hmm.
complete. But both of these resources are also used eventually for calculating your financial aid. So these are things that you do have to do, I believe, like pretty early on too, like FAFSA and
Hmm.
whatever college board. I can't remember the tool name, but there's a college board aid thing, and there's also the FAFSA. But you need to complete those sometime in the summer or the fall, I believe, of
Hmm.
like the summer before your senior year or the fall of your senior. I think it's the fall, if I'm not wrong.
I believe so.
Yeah, but I mean, even though you're not admitted per se, but this information does help schools quite a bit. And it actually might be even a requirement. I believe it might actually, I think it might be a requirement on the supplemental outlook.
I think it is for most
Yeah,
schools.
most
If
schools.
you can like usually check, there'll be something where either you'll say like I am applying for financial aid or I'm not. If you're not, then you don't have to fill this out. But if you are applying for financial aid, you do have to fill this out and submit it.
Yeah. So that's the one thing I just wanted to briefly interject there, that there are some things like the FAFSA, and I'm feeling really bad. I can't remember the College Board tool name, but these things are things that you have to complete as well, on the side as you're doing your college application process. So, and then that kind of goes hand in hand with scholarships, because that can, like the FAFSA and that College Board tool, that will help the colleges determine how much need-based aid you need. And then, of course, the merit scholarships are there, um, as demonstrated by your merit. So, like, of course, they're going to and you may even need to write essays for that. There's also some of these merit scholarships have additional essay prompts that you need to do. So, again, I guess the big thing here is really being organized and, of course, keeping track
Mhm.
of deadlines and then planning appropriately. If there is a scholarship essay, right, you obviously have to not just worry about your supplemental essays, but you also have to worry about finishing that scholarship essay as well in time as well. So, anyways, that was my brief aside. We'll go back to our final few tips here and then
Yeah.
conclude the episode. Oh, go
I
ahead.
think
Great.
for, oh yeah, sorry. I think for me, I just have like some final parting remarks, but otherwise I feel like I've personally covered everything.
Mhm.
Um, but my biggest takeaway is just like trust yourself and also like I said, be yourself through all of this. Don't be trying to be someone else in your application. Don't be trying to be someone else at a university because ultimately like you might get there and not be that person that you've been trying to be and want to be yourself. So just really trust yourself throughout the whole application cycle and also don't let you're like don't be comparing yourself to other applicants too much or too harshly because like truthfully like your application is just as good. Sometimes denials happen for really arbitrary reasons. Sometimes they're just they didn't have a spot and it's okay and it's not reflective of you as a person at all. Ultimately you will end up somewhere that will be good for you and will set you up very well. And if you need any help through that process or even if after you're just like I just want someone to like vent about college applications too, like that is something we'd be happy to do.
Yeah, I will say, like, compared to everybody else out there in terms of this, college admissions consulting arena, I would say we try to be the most human about it.
For
So,
sure.
like, if at any phase, if you feel like you just want to talk to us and talk about this whole process, the cycle, and like how maybe you're venting, maybe you're ranting, maybe you need help, like, we are here for all of those purposes. And really, like, we try to give you all as much help and insight as possible into this because it can be very daunting. I can say from
Hmm.
my own experience, since like both my parents didn't go to college here in the US. So like for me it was like a very like I was the one who had to do literally like everything from scratch, like do all the research and figure out this process that can be really mysterious. So we are here to support you in all the ways that you need. And we have a video, as I've said on several occasions in each of these episodes, that tells the process for how to schedule a session with either Bree, me, or somebody else. And we're here to help you. And in short, and I guess I have like one or two final remarks here, which is like it can be like this process. I think I really echo everything Bree just said. I think that's like the most important stuff to really keep in mind as you're navigating this process. And the biggest thing is also not to feel like it's very easy to get overwhelmed and stressed. I would say, like, especially as Bree mentioned, this is your senior year of high school. You have so much going on. Not to mention, especially if you're engaged in a ton of leadership positions, you have so many places
Hmm.
to go to, you have this process going on. It's a lot. And throughout any of this process, like it can be really overwhelming. So definitely take some time for yourself as well in this process for self-care. However, you feel the need to relax and de-stress because it can be quite a bit. And then of course we're here to talk as well. So if you ever want to chat with us, we both love talking to people. Hopefully, that's evidenced by this this podcast series. But yeah, we're here to support y'all 100%. So that is going to be my final few parts or insights. And anything final do you want to add to cap off the series, Bree? Or
I think I'm all good. That was very, very well said.
So I guess our final things to say, definitely check out the video that's attached to this, which talks about how to schedule a session with one of us. We thank you all for joining us on this journey of this podcast series. I think this is the first formal completed podcast series in our organization, so I'm very proud of that too. But thank you all for joining us on this journey here about the college admissions process. If we have enough interest, we can go into some of the other processes like the med school application process or even graduate school admissions. We have people in our group who are currently in different places, but can really speak about that as well. Um, and yeah, we thank you all for joining us on this journey. And we definitely hope to see y'all in one of our other series or even just chatting with us in one of our one-on-one sessions. So yeah, that is all I have to say. And thank you and have a great day wherever y'all are, or great evening, great good night. We don't know. It's the internet. So yeah, thank you so much for joining.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome to GSE. We are glad that you have chosen us to best assist you in your academic needs. This video will cover the steps to set up a one-on-one virtual tutoring session with one of our skilled tutors. First, start by visiting the GSE website, thegsecorp.org. Next, scroll down and click on the Learn More button under the VOT Institute panel. Clicking the Learn More button will direct you to the virtual outreach tutoring page on our website. Upon reaching this page, scroll down and click on the Students button. You will now be directed to complete the one-on-one student registration form. If you have a preference to get assistance from a specific tutor, please click the Our Tutor Team button to see a list of our different tutors and their respective academic specialties. Near the end of the one-on-one student registration form, you will be asked to set up an appointment with a virtual tutor. When you click the Schedule the Appointment link, you will be directed to a scheduling page where you will set up an appointment with a tutor. Do not close the student registration form. After setting up your appointment, you will need to return to the student registration form and click the Confirm Option button to show that you have scheduled your appointment. Finally, submit the student registration form and check your email for confirmation. Congratulations! You have successfully set up your virtual tutoring session. If you encounter any difficulties throughout this process, please do not hesitate to contact the GSE Technical Helpline at 516-331-1606 or send an email to us at tutors@thegsecorp.org.